So, how you doing? I haven't seen none of you for ages. Everybody seems to not talk anymore, which I find quite surprising. All this talk about brown history and what it's worth and how we should protect it, and half of us don't even talk on social media. The speaking which takes place, stay home and stay safe, plays a major role in initializing the concept, which has a lot to do with signposting a magnifying glass into everything. The community, a girl, a boy, an elder. If we stay home, we stay safe. If we stay safe, we don't need to cover our mouths. But in hindsight, I discovered if the air was so contaminated that everybody was going to be at harm and risk, and I'm sure we would not be speaking at all. So what I need is, I need to connect. I need to check within the people's mental and physical well-being, how well we can show how wonderful we are here in the UK. Because part of brown history doesn't just derive the sustainability to drive how important it should be in one country alone. It's a group effort. Everyone ensures the safety of one another, regardless of what the representation should be, regardless of a fist, regardless of the colour, the suit, the clothing, the food. It's the mindset, the communion that we hold as people when we stick together and support one another for the change that we want to see. And the example to that would be, if we haven't seen change in our community, then what's that supposed to suggest? Because if I have a business, a t-shirt business, and I'm trying to make way for a style, and nobody supports that, but they support something else that they prioritize because that friend is more of the community than that one guy who stands out by himself, then how can we expect change when we need it? And then when we look back, and then other people ask questions about, well, why is there black on black violence? What do you think? So if someone has something and that person who hasn't got it feels that his position being a street thug ultimately controls his actions and his attitude, and he knows he can take something of somebody else, then that's exactly what he's going to try to do with a collective group of people who are going to be on the same timeline as him. And that's a gang. The way that we can learn from the past is not to allow ourselves no more room build any more space to do those things. And we have to train ourselves, not force, but train ourselves to invent, if you like, reinvent something. Don't get my live video a transcription of imaginative ideology, because we can't see clouds this close. In hindsight, we should always stick to the focus of what remains important to us as brown people. When you see the colors that you can recognize, you don't block it, you identify yourself with it. I can't really take advocating my culture any more seriously than what I've seen. Because when someone cares about you, this is the outfit. And you support the outfit. There's no point favoritizing some other guy who looks more popular and then the little guy. You just leave that alone. You bring it all together, like soil. You need a pot of soil to grow flowers, plant, which becomes a root. And you know the story. Then it grows, and then it looks beautiful because of all the love that you gave it. I'm not the type of guy that follows the trend. I don't really not decide what's best for myself when I learn how to revive myself. Not because I'm self-absorbed, but now because the one thing that I took from brown history was the importance of needing a leader. And what does a leader have to do to become the best leader ever? Look after himself. Even when it seems as if all the pretty things that he can't get his hands on seems to sway away from him. It's still relevant for a woman also. Women stay single to keep themselves preserved, to love themselves, to get to know who they are inside. And that's a beautiful thing. And when men value women in order to do that as well, they teach themselves the beauty of that reservation, value, instead of crying out to yourself because there's no love around, no one's there for you. The best logic would be to just appreciate who you are as a person, respect your cultures, show reverence for your people, look good for your people. You can still look good as a single person, but there's no need to question whether love exists, because love builds itself just like a root from the soil, which is growth, which does take time to understand and overstand and comprehend the activity of her or his surroundings, which is within and deep, but there is no flow. Because I know, I do, that soil don't need water every day to grow. There is a texture that weaves together like a spider's web. Spider web don't need water to weave itself to grow. Close observation. That's my kung fu, and that's why in the time of the very beginning there'd be no reason to fight. There is no war. What war? What for? That's not God's law at all. So don't stop believing the hype. That's not a signpost to the states. It's just knowing yourself ultimately. It's not about how did he get so smart. It's nothing to do with that. It's all about leaders. We need those leaders. We need people to take care of themselves, take care of one another. You all know how to grow children for 9 months, whether you're single or apart. And then when the father's alone, he becomes independent, and then he learns and grows himself based off that independence. And that's his day and his night. That's his spirituality, as I said. The picture with the gravitating, levitating, vibrating ripples, that's your afro. But you don't necessarily have to believe in that. Belief is that. That's your leaf, that's your root, that's your growth. Once you understand the pictures give life. There is no over explanation of why I'm doing this. It speaks for itself. The communication. Best not to overinterpret the message because it's simple. When you flow with a rhythm that does not stop, that's like being abused. If someone's hitting you and abusing you and they don't stop and you tell them to stop, the flow sounds so good to them, but to you, it's hurting, it's harming you. Then that's abuse. I thought you should know this by now. But you can take my word for it. You can even see my actions for it. Because a secret does take this long to reveal oneself. That's why it's a secret. That's why it fell where it fell. And who knew that it was available to them at that time as a choice to hold on to it or to let it go. And if they let it go, it's because they don't know why they've been given that gift in that present time. But people who didn't get it would want to try and take it, just like the transatlantic and all the tradesmen who went somewhere to see something, to then take something, to then sell something, to then trade something over again, which is an investment, which is Wall Street, which is just gambling. Raise the stakes of a product. Could be anything, any itemized value. I know so much about value, but money, it's just monumental people who were slaved in the past. We spend it, we watch it, we look at it, we sit next to it, we become it. The ideal of my speaking now would to be let go of that, not let go of history, because we're history here now. Our forefathers, our foremothers are here now. So why are we holding on to something that's still ruining? I want to see nothing more that advances beyond that. Less homeless, brown homeless. I don't want to see any more of the homeless people on the roads. I want to see whatever you use in your attire, your business, your mantra, your practice, then at least have a little bit there for your history, for your kinfolk, to show them something that you know something. We can all break up the history of the Atlantic and we can use that as a form of prompt that we know something about our history, and that can be the hook for the business, for the growth. Nothing to do with advancing, it's just a way of our life. And it doesn't have to be stressful, it doesn't have to be demeaning, it doesn't have to be militant, it doesn't have to be strong or none of that. It just needs to adapt with an approach that's subtle, but you know your history based off one topic. And if we all take that separate topic of our history and we grow that within our individual businesses, then we can collate and collaborate and hold together with our communion of the history that should never ever be left out of everything that we do, which is a reminder. For one, when I was younger back in 48, what I carried with me at that time was pretty much blessed in comparison to what I keep with me at all times right now. One, it was knowledge, but I didn't know how to access it at the time. So trying to hold on at that time, to make an impression was difficult for me because I didn't grow up. I had a small early years, 13 years of growing up with my peoples. Whether it's in Handsworth or Perry Bar, I had my time. And then when I stepped out of that time, then I went into private areas, I picked up different things, and that pretty much prepared me for the road ahead by myself. But then I made a choice to come back to Birmingham, and I had to learn the streets and people. I took learning about my experiences about the past as history at that time, but I still felt that I didn't know what history meant. So that's when I went to university and I started looking at things. And it broke my heart, I couldn't maintain. But I researched enough with force. I had to force myself to look through the shackles and the chains and the hangman game that still plays around today in history, with games that kids create. And then I look at America, in the United States, and I see that they're still allowing all kinds of different colors of directors to allow themselves to create a film. And I always looked at that later on, surpassing years of watching those types of films, to now question, well, this is why things still exist, because you guys are allowing people to get away with doing these. And if it was me, I would have to take all that history back with a group of people. I got my boy, Coley, he's a DJ. I've got certain skills with film, but there's people out there who can put our history together in a wonderful, productive, well-established manner. We've got so much style. I mean, the way that I look at my history is this. The nails for light-skinned people, the skin for myself, the overall holds the authority of me. And then we've got mixed race, Asians. And that tells me the lines in which I read for me. I'm not sure if there's anybody else who looks at history the way I do, but I know I do. In the way that I do, helps me to revive, reconcile, to revive the thoughts of how I feel, whenever I feel. when it feels right to me. Because as people, we love each other day and night, at work, at home, at church, choosing an activity, a holiday period to go somewhere. We don't subject ourselves to nights because we are night. Whether this is at daytime and you disapprove of it because of the style of it, then that just leaves me by myself. But I can still see that with a complexity to communicate, to connect, is going to be my motivation. Just so to resurrect within the minds of people who I care for, care about my people. Doesn't matter what time of day it is, doesn't matter where it is. All that it matters to me is that I say something. What should we take from what he says? Exactly what I said, because I've already said it. So at the end of trying to look for it, you've been blessed by it. You have good hearing, sharp where it captures it. Just like holding onto your partner that you have feelings for. Sensitive, intellectual feelings for. The only emotion that comes from feeling the rhythms inside that vibrate as a reminder is just to take the time to feel sensitive enough to feel that the communication of caring is sharing your rhythms, heartbeat with those who you consider to call family, friends. A family member can still have a tag as a friend or family or an associate. We advance in individualism and we have titles that we need to recreate and reinvent, that is. When I look at what's been practiced with our history members in different states and countries, there is a concern. That's why I asked at the beginning, I need to check within the value of being so individual with all the secrecy that helped me to grow so that I can stand up stronger than many representatives. Hi Strala P.S. Collins. Congratulations on your marriage. I know we went to college together. It's beautiful to see that you found the right girl for you. To keep her refreshed. It's always nice to check in with her daily. Protect her with thoughts, guidance, and care, improvement, ideas. Show her that she has the power to create abilities, opportunities. Make her feel like she's a part of our history. Make her feel like she is history. Make her feel that she's a part of your godly body's attribute to advocate that you become the best example, or at least one of them, within our community that states this is why we've improved, advanced, got better, not to boast anymore, why we would need to. It's not style, it's not trend, it's life. It's not film, it's life, it's living, it's being kind, it's knowing when to rewind. The time of the signs is identifying what it is that may ruin us, and spoil us, and make us fall from flowetry, flowering, complacency of being able to stay still and still be beautiful. Your marriage has a wonderful, prosperous future. Whether you have children now or later on, you'll definitely have beautiful children. And make sure the most important thing to ensure the safety of your child would be to baptize as soon as possible, or as soon as you can, just to protect and add spiritual discipline to the practice without having to raise a hand or shout a heightened, highlighted voice just to control where she's or he's meant to sit. That's how it should have been done, and it wasn't done. Immature acts of the past, reflecting the times the future is going to leave us with nowhere to turn. I love hip-hop, I love jazz, I love reggae. But if the message don't sound right, I can't listen to it. If people are not saying motivational things in these times that matters, to surpass the matter so that we can rub our eyes and see clearly, I can't support it. A message should not be so damaged in such a good way that we think that that's what's going to build our strong black brothers and sisters and pump a fist up to it because it looks aggressive. I know you feel how I feel if you take time to listen. We all know when something sounds good, so we should advocate the goodness, because ultimately that's the act that saves lives. I would want to save all individuals from my community's life because they're the people who I grew up with. I love people, even the people who seem to keep running away from me. I still love those people because they played a part in my growth. You played a part in my growth at college, being a basketballer. Style to where you are now. Your style has been compatible with your stylist, who she is. I missed the wedding, but I didn't miss the wedding because I spent so much time with myself. I missed the wedding because I had to. I missed the wedding because what you didn't get then is what you got now. And if you got it now, you wouldn't have got it back then. Because I wasn't ready. This message is to everyone on Facebook who knows me. And it's best that things come later on than very straight away. Because people get things wrong when it's done straight away. Because people don't question what they're fighting for, or standing for, or speaking for. And that's the confusion that some people are in at the moment. I could class myself as lucky, but then I can say you're lucky too. Because you have your guard. And even though she's a female, she can still guard you. Women do guard good guys. And you're very fortunate to have met a good girl who's guiding a good guy, because she is your protection. You have your armoured suit right next to you. And for how you two got together, that's the reason why you're together. I'm not sure who's responsible for meeting who first, but I'm sure you have a beautiful story for other individuals who would be seeking marriage. Your testament for showing that testament would be to create a video. For how long? You'll know, because the act of the body is perfect when you're in perfect timing with your testament, and your testimony will be felt by people who came to your wedding, who were looking to be married, because everyone's searching to be married. Everyone's trying to find someone who they can get together with. And Strella, you are a perfect example. You're the best example. You're great. Forget being perfect and the best. You're the one example that can add his testimony with his armor, do you have a wife and her alone? The testimony, the practice of truth and what feels good. You're a good guy, you've always been. You had a good head on your shoulders, even though you described your style with a basketball, and your speech, your mannerisms make you the ideal guy. I'm in awe with what you've achieved. Marriage is a big commitment. Well done, bro. Like, you should celebrate being married every day, like, and enjoy the gift that it brings. You have something special. I know that you and your wife, your partner, are going to stay together for a very long time. The only worry that you should have is none. A business plan, I figured this out. You've got your strengths, you've got your opportunities, and that's it. There's nothing else other than that. Your strengths and your opportunities. Value that. I know you do. The wonderful thing about how this works out is that everything that I'm saying, you already have this inside your body. But you just need someone high enough within their own perspective view to overstand all the drama, just to teach you, for you to feel good about it afterwards. And you will. There should always be an example that governs the good people's lives, and that would be to say something good. Strala, Pierce, Collins, you're gonna have a good life. You're gonna have a good future. You're gonna have wonderful kids. You're gonna have a job opportunity, and you're gonna share that positivity with all your friends and all your family members. And they're gonna be happy because of you. And everyone's gonna be happy in our community together, because we know that our little secret, our little finger, our little pinky has a slinky that he didn't have to thrust it at any individual to create. Thank you, my friend. An enemy of any type, of any sort, because the only slinky that we have, which is a sling, which is a hug, which is a kiss, which is bliss, which is a wish, which is a dream, which is a team, which is basketball, which is Strala, Pierce, Collins, with the brains and mind noggins, is the reason why that we'll always keep surpassing all those who want to try and beat only one God, and there's only ever going to be one God. And that was a good guy right there. So at the end of hearing something, you say to yourself, well, what are we to learn from it? Shall I tell you what? Everything that you just heard is what we learn from what I'm saying right now. It all plays its part. If we are good,
he went away and he's coming back. He's coming back for his people. The world is in a state at the moment. Look at everything that's going on around. They want to lock you up in your houses. They want you to be away from your friends and family. They want you to be on your own. But there's only one person that can keep you comforted, and that is the Lord Christ Jesus. So it doesn't matter what's going on around you. It doesn't matter what the environment is saying. It doesn't matter what the government is saying to you. We have our Lord Jesus Christ. So we'll never Jesus is our rock. Jesus is who we lean on. Jesus is who we look to when we feel down, when we feel depressed. Jesus is the one. Jesus is the answer to all of our problems. The problems that are in the world right now. Jesus is the answer, and there's no other way out. So you can think to yourself, oh yeah, let me take this vaccine that's coming out. You know, the one that they haven't even tested and they want to put into the body of human beings. Yeah, let me take that and let me see whether, you know, I can now fit into this system that they're trying to get us into. But let me tell you, Birmingham, there's no fitting into no system. The only system is the kingdom of God. The only system is with our Father in heaven. The only system is the one that we're going to be where we're living eternally in hope and in joy and in peace. That is the only system that we need to be running to get into. We need to be queuing. We need to be queuing by the millions to get into the system. The kingdom of God is at hand, and our Father, our Jesus, He's coming back. He's coming back to rule this world, and He's coming back to let you know that there's only one way, and it's only through Jesus that we can get to our Father in heaven. Birmingham, it's time. Birmingham, the signs of the time are telling you. They're telling you that it's time. It's time to turn away from this world. It's time to look up.
When we give the women a chance to speak, that's a template right there. Something beautiful. Allow the word shouldn't even come up. Needs not be said. A woman has a voice too. And that was a nice, subtle approach to making everybody feel good about people who know how to handle something in a mature way. We have to take back our history now, and we have to be the examples that didn't seem to teach us in the way that we actually needed to be taught. Thank you for watching. I'm not finished, but thank you for coming in. Our together history is sun-kissed that much that it means so much to us. The law of ethics is the discipline that our parents used at the best time of the 80s or the 70s to make us who we are now. Not God-fearing as in we're going to be beaten, but God-fearing as in knowing what we're looking for. Because when you fear someone who's meant to be yours, there is nothing to fear in that at all. Fear less, stress less. Strahler, Pierce, Collins. There is no wobbly knees that wobblings when you're coming towards and closer to the truth. Whether it stumbles or fumbles, ultimately the head is above. So the head is the reason why the head is ahead. Once you figure out why the head becomes the head, then you know how to use the head to hold on to the love of the head and the thoughts, going beyond what it's meant to look like. Then you've saved yourself. Order of happiness plays a part in scripture as well, because you've got to be in the frame of mind to want to read scripture, to be happy, ultimately to receive the message in the actions of the body, because it's happiness that frees the body from constraints and barriers and hurdles. We're not running a race when we're living in life. We were originally birthed to walk and to talk and to share with other representatives that are supposed to come to know who we are as a culture, community, people, family, friends, associates, business partners, a collective group of love. We have that. We have that here. We have that in Africa. We have that in Jamaica. And there are broken off segments in different parts of the land where our love seems to be also. We've just got to be a good example. We have to advocate our individuality ultimately for us to be an example. The example is when we have a queen and we allow her to speak and we give her time to express herself, to enunciate her expressions. Then we learn through the discipline of seeing someone who can be an example of how a lord is supposed to be allowed to be himself, and how he communicates or how she communicates. And together, I couldn't think of anyone more special than the people that I met when I first came into Foyer here in the Birmingham area, that taught me so much in such a fast time that I couldn't even hold on to my mind just to find the questions and the answers to what was actually going on with me at that time. But I was learning automatically. I had no control. But I had to just keep going on with myself at the time, learning around my people and what they were teaching me. If it didn't make sense to me, I guess people were trying to find out the level of my intelligence as an individual. But every time I went around people, no one really expressed to me what I needed to know. This day, this time, in all my askings, and no one really spoke to me. No one really sat me down and asked me things. I don't want to go too personal, but something that was hurting me at the time. And most of my cousins who knew what was hurting me could only say to me at that time, have you seen that person? And for me, they knew that that story in my life was almost a broken one. So I guess solitude for at least 30 years of my life in different places, because the ones who were closest to me didn't know how to hold me properly, made me go outside of my community. And that pretty much sums up why we go astray, why we subject ourselves to other people's plans. And then the planning which is meant to come from the planner takes more time than it's supposed to. But that's a beautiful thing, because a secret isn't what you tell me that I keep in, depending on the community that surrounds. It's how my body acts. And in this slow, orderly manner of how I express myself is the best way for ultimately a man as well. Because everything that I've well compensated for with this speech this day is my gift offering, my tithe, my tithing for you and for others who may watch this video to see who it applies to. Yeah. Of course, my body applies to a woman, and that's it, to both. You have your choice to choose who you want to be with, whether she's a light skin or a dark skin. I have my choice too, but I've remained single for almost 10 years now, just to purify myself from all walks of different areas, of different communities and different people, just so that I can make myself wonderful and beautiful for myself, my own people, so that if I do meet someone to marry and to hold close, then she will know that I've had almost 10 years by myself to get to know myself. And this is the result of getting to know myself this well, because I took myself away from chasing things that was damaging to me. Not like I've ever been in danger, because when I questioned whether I was in danger, and I was misled to believe that the danger that I was needing to seek at the time could have been figured at I wasn't to know that well. But who did I need at that time when I was going through what I was going through? I needed you. Not just you, Strella. I needed Alicia. I needed Delta. I needed Toya. I needed Selena. I needed my dad. I needed Navla. I needed Delarice and Adele, Tristan and Ricardo. I needed Nikita. I needed Shireen. But I needed myself. Most importantly, because no one was there to need me, because everybody made everybody else more important than me. So I had to become that, which was, for me at the time, a new way to save myself. I had to become the class clown with myself, by myself, just to save myself. So making yourself laugh and smile sometimes can help you and guide you and realign you on the path without falling again, never. And I had to build that by myself. A woman could be as sensitive as she needs to be for any guy. But as women, my advice back to you through knowing myself that well would be best not to predict or assume that women are more sensitive than men, because men are sensitive too. And it doesn't make men any less of a man being that so sensitive, because it's not supposed to affect the relationship or the marriage or the friendship, the family line, the grain, ultimately the law of brown people, the way we're meant to move with one another. Our colour describes to me the compatibility of actually staying together, because when something's so full, so fulfilled, how can it depart unless I've just opened my mouth and you see my lips and my teeth? Who takes that if you don't know that you have it? I can't, but I can illustrate. This is my perfect picture. This is life for me. This is what I call a fulfilling moment in this time, on this day, which is going to be taken somewhere special. If it cuts off and I don't get to send it to Facebook in time, you've seen it. You can share the answer and people will listen to you because you heard me. And the best thing about it is that you know me and I know you. I respect you and you respect you, which is the respect that I see in why you've taken so long to listen. Marriage has humbled you and kept you. And by your discipline, listening to your wife is the reason why you listen to me. He doesn't give it or take it away from another brother, from our undercover family. But this is an example for brothers to come to see. The importance of just being brown is that we carry that, we teach that. When we sign up for jobs, what's your hobbies and interests? My history, black history. I like to be around the circumference of the space of my people. I like to sell clothing or items to my people because I know that they're going to need it. So this is it. It's very simple, brown history. It doesn't need to be littered, doesn't need to be strengthened. It's just a particular type of knowledge and approach to history for everything that we lost, whatever it was that we lost, that we wasn't alive at the time to receive. The incentive is to just build that again. Relationships that we had at the time fell apart. So what do? Naturally, we build that again. That's so simple about relationships that it ultimately teaches history. It teaches history to those who are willing to learn it. That's a discipline. Like martial arts, your discipline, your practice every day. I spent my life just looking at things, feeling things, why it was happening at the time. I wasn't sure. I had no idea at the time, but I listened to all the mixtapes of all the artists who came out speaking about their broken home. And then I thought, everyone's doing that, everyone's preaching that. And then I tested it with seeing if people was going to answer a so-called Lord, and I didn't get much of a reply or response at the time. So I stepped away to give something more on the terms of what I'm sharing now, that we can share along and pass it on, or we can invite people to the page. It's not a page, it's just knowledge, it's just care. You're my brother, I'm your brother, in a different household of the city. That's not ours, but it's protection from where we're not supposed to be. Surrounding, just being in a city where we're not going to be at harm unless we create that harm, which is another type of somebody else's discipline, which can only be seen as a beautiful pathway, which is a secret to what we've come to align ourselves to stand with a new balance, so to speak, today. Discrimination shouldn't be taught by people who it's practiced on, because we're supposed to know the discipline. That's why Black Lives Matter. If you can't see it, but you feel it, but your mind can't feel anything unless it's working, that's when you'll be able to explain Black lives. But it's just lives. I'm speaking live because I live. That's not it, because people are still separated. We don't see each other. When no one sees me, I don't have any platforms with any of my peoples, but I'm here watching. But it's nice to feel a part of. If I don't feel a part of, then I just stay by myself. I don't chase anyone, because it's nothing to do with worth anymore. All those practices, nothing to do with worth and value. How you doing, love? Stay happy? Woman? I know that I don't have to question my actions when you're that confident. When you're confident but more well-esteemed, why would you have to question your ability? Why would you have to use that to boast, to fight, when you're so in tune with your spiritual, physical self? That is pretty much the deadline to all answers about the ability of being a good individual. To recompensate, reteaching that in a time when people are just going to use that as an excuse to claim position. You can't, as a king, give your position away to someone who doesn't deserve it. I can't use violence at that level to affect people's lives who just want to fight, because there's only one outcome. When you fight, there's only one outcome. Someone's going to get hurt severely or forever. So we allow ourselves instead of need, because when we need too much things. So let's take away need and allow ourselves to notice the positive actions that's going to allow ourselves to free ourselves from needing. How do we enunciate that in language? We don't need to, because the body is a free entity like the shadow. That's how the body moves. That's how the mind's supposed to move with thoughts. That's thought outside of the head, which is well with the mind and how it's supposed to react with the treasures that it finds. This would not be anything more than the fulfilling act of how beauty is supposed to play its part when you're well within your rights of owning that beauty. That's one thing I learned from slavery days before I even was subject to becoming that, unless I allowed or needed. Allowed wouldn't have been allowed at that time, because there's signs that saying you are not allowed, so it's a cautionary sign if you don't know what it means and how free it sounds. I needed at that time to take in hip-hop and all the signs to feel a part of something. It helps, but when you have a good sign, you don't mix it with a bad sign. The Bible is meant to be 100% pure, good, and that's why we only read the good things. Trying to become destructive with our characters, to be the Lord of War for all the wrong reasons, to be so good speaking with bad words, is not anything to do with the growth of how to grow a plant or a tree. But at the same time, to question me and say, well, you said that the soil doesn't need water to grow. That's correct. But at the same time, the point of it is that whether the tree or the root has water on some days and then it has sun on the other days, or it's humid on other days, it still grows positively. That's the war of just being a seed, to get through the texture of the soil, of the land, of the ground, up to resurrect yourself out of from what's holding you still on somebody else's nails, to get hold of somebody who can't be accessible because nobody knows where that person is. But once you're married to good words and good thoughts and good people and good family people who surround you and protect you, who are you searching for? Who would you be searching for? That's the way I look at it. That's the way, since my dad passed away, that allowed me to recompensate, to voucher, to refund everything that I lost inside my mind. But we got all these problems in the world. Like, how comes you don't stop those problems? How comes there's war that we read in the Watchtower booklets, the pamphlets? Because nobody wants to listen, because everybody started an argument with something or the other and they want to protect it because nobody wants to lose it. So I figured to myself, there is no point leaving where I'm standing. And even if I did at a time. I went to Iceland, but I initially went to Detroit. I got stranded in Iceland, which was probably the best thing that happened to me, because the only two people that was there for me at the time was Paul Dillon, who was from the United States, and Delta Webster, who obviously my mother at that time, for me to question whether she loved me or not, but she was the only person that got me back. And then when I came back, then Paul got in touch with me to suggest that, well, I'm here to help you, but it was too late because my leg was infected and I needed to get back to Birmingham as soon as possible, or else I probably would have died or caught an illness. So I can't really despise Delta because I know what the love's supposed to feel like. But that's beyond worry now. But I did go, and when I went, I did test being outside as far as I could to see if anyone else would came. I did place my distress signal on Instagram and no one came to me. And I was just there by myself in a cold country. It was like a circle. If it was the sun in the sky, it was the sun on the ground surrounded by rivers. an ocean. Nobody was there, but I realized that. Then I saw the broken rainbow and I thought, maybe I'm not meant to go anywhere other than where I've landed. There are many rainbows, but there's only one pot of gold. When you get that gold, you protect it. You don't trade it. You don't give it away, then cry later. You cry now to receive what you always had, which is something that's too big to move. Because once people get their hands and nails on it, it's an argument, it's a fight. And then they're going to use what they have in their hands as equity, money, wave it around, show it off. What's that become today? Where has that originated? Is that really happening? Or are they playing with you to see how smart we are as individuals over here to talk about our own history? That happened so many years ago, which none of them had to suffer for. And if anyone had to suffer for anything, it was Africa, to the reason why I called that if it was Africa's land, then it would be African people's land. And if they needed only one person to say that, then here it is. In Birmingham, where a white woman called it United Kingdom. Why? Because somebody found something and they knew exactly what to do with it. Do we suffer over here? No, we don't. Is there really racism over here? A little. Are people dying from time to time? So what can we learn from what I've said? Everything that I've just said, to everything that your ears captured. Because being in a marriage, then you're supposed to be sharp to capture things. If you want to take that lead position, Strala Collins, and everybody in my Webster and Gray family, and you think you can work with me, and we can be the best example and grow a business from all that I've shown all my life being here, then you should know something about what's going to happen in the future for Brown history. I don't need to be King or X or Selassie. I'm Tony. Ant. The builder. Only. That's it. Only one ant can be the strength. But with these people who know better and should, that's strong right there. That's a stronghold, isn't it? That's a hug. I didn't want to over-alliterate or over-poetically express myself in this video because I don't aim only but to carry you to a place where you don't have to force any type of being within yourself at the time to understand, to overstand, but just to collect. Like a parcel, you've ordered it, it gets delivered to the door, you collect it, you open it, you smile, you place it upon the mantelpiece. For the love that I feel and whom it belongs to, because I'm confident that she's the most maturest of women that I've met, has the strongest root to be the best wife that any good guy like me could experience, to be so happy and privileged to experience, then I've already mentioned her name first before anybody else's name. And that's who I love. I've expressed everything that I needed to do with music, my personality. I may not have expressed at the time why I couldn't show you why and how much I liked you. Maybe it was something that you should have said at the time, which goes beyond loving me, but you should have made me feel alright at the time to say it's okay. And then that would have opened up the mantra and the chi within me to see that you do have feelings, and you did on 50% of the circumference. But on the other side, we both needed work. You needed to go down the route that she went down, and I needed to go down the route that I went down. The picture that I have for her is in my heart, and that's in our personal time. Music, no music, it's just the expression. And only a married man like the best guy called Piers Strala Collins can advance and bear witness to say, well, it's maybe a little of this and that, but I'll allow you to allow yourself your own allowance which is your interpretation and your intellect and your spiritualism and your freedom and your leadership, because even though you carry the word of what I said, to enunciate that, you're a leader in horoscope to the history to play your position. You don't have to have a platform, you just gotta have stronghold, and that's what ultimately continues to regenerate the electricity in our house. I'd love to go to a studio and make a song. I do have a song in mind, but the emotions has got to be right. But at the moment where my butt is concerned, I've used the woman mantra and activity, the structure of taking a little time, maybe a bit longer than I was supposed to, just to find my feminine contribution to becoming a masculine entity, and to advocate that. There is nothing, absolutely nothing more wrong than failing to realize the traits that a man has from a woman's perspective, for her to acknowledge and identify the sensitivity which should be taken with all consideration to be protected. That's how a marriage continues in longevity. Work together as a team, watch football, watch basketball, watch cricket. Something that shows an example of how to be teammates and to partner that and wear that. Take time to call your partner throughout the day. Tell her you love her so much that you're gonna stay with her. Show your kids, your children, discipline them with the baptism. That's subtle, it's flow, it's harmless, it doesn't hurt you. And when you're held, like the picture suggests, when Jesus was being baptized by John, that's how you hold someone and baptize them, to care for them. Most of us weren't baptized when we came into this world. It's the reason why most of us probably fell off. And we've chose to chase something else that has no value. But it's valuable, but it has no value when somebody else is waving it at you just to control what you're gonna do, or how you can do it, or how good you can do it. You're not lost when you do that, to commit to it, but the act of your body through somebody telling you what to do, if they're not the Lord above, with the awe, with the crown, to smile, to assign approval, when you know it feels right because it sounds right, the acceptance of the body allowing itself to come into the full motion of that, with the shadow and all the good words spoken, it's what comes from it. There can only ever be a why. When you throw your hands up, when you celebrate, there are not two words brought together to express the act of people, the governing and law of people, the ethics and logic in them is unexplainable, because there is no tag to what feels good unless it's just good. It's good because that's the word that I read in a script, and that amounts to everything. Is he a good guy? Is she a good girl? Yeah, it was a good film, innit? Music sounded good, man. He looked good, expressed good, talked good. I allowed myself to feel that goodness, the goodies, the good eye, the wink of approval that doesn't throw you off balance. I was taking the Bible, the tribal of the people, the revival with the sequel, which is sweet like treacle, to honey the smooth taste, just to make you even next to equal. Eve, Adam, speaking. Mic check. Tested. Rearresting the best in the game. What game? I don't play games. This is a serious conversation. This is serious speech for people who sought to reach. You can't hate me. Why would you hate me for? You know me. We people, I grew up here. I just took a hiatus. Took some time apart. Went to my room. Sat there. Revised myself. I revised myself for approval. I went places. I done things to find the answers, to bring it back. Shopping. I went out. Came back in. I was unadulterated. Made friends. I lost friends. I had keys given to me. I lost those keys. People gave me money. I lost that money. People bought me clothes and gifts. I lost those gifts and clothes. But I never closed my mind. Faith. Belief. Words that I was searching for. All these words. All these people. All these characters. Something to tweet. Something to eat. Something to beat. Who? The truth? Can't beat the truth if it sounds this good. Can't beat the truth if you try to beat the truth, because we're not here to beat anything. We're just here to be something. Be at something. At peace with something. Someone. Somebody's. A communion. Together. A family. There's a family over there. There's a family over here. They may be acting better than us, but what do? We just stay together, innit? That's it. There's no point fighting one another. What's the point?
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell Vince I said hi, yeah? In fact, we go soon. What I'm doing now is better than I've ever done before. Just being sociable, being good. When you're a good person, you do good things. There is no envying. There's no hatred, unless you wear a hat, red eye. Yo, Vince, what's up? Just a quick one, bro. You alright? This is Vince, my boy. Everybody knows him. Boxer.
Hey.
Stronghold.
Yes, man. You alright?
Yeah, I just thought I'd
What's
pass
the
it.
family?
Just talking.
Everybody's good.
Yeah.
Good man there, man.
How come I
Good
say
man.
yeah, alright?
Yeah, man. Nice one, man.
Alright.
I'll see you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've made a life here in Birmingham. I mean, I could follow the game, but I have my own head, and I hold that dear to my heart. I fell in love with a girl, but I didn't know what love meant, but I just knew that my body at the time reacted in a way that made me not rise to the occasion at that time. And then later on, I dated her sister. And when I could have took the chance to do something at that time, I held back. I wasn't sure if she was I like virgin olive oil. I didn't know at the time if I should have impressed myself. So I just held back for what it was worth, and then I went through what I went through at the time with another woman called Janine. Nothing happened. I didn't give myself to her. She bought me a pint in a pub, which subconsciously I had to look around. I wasn't sure if that was my culture or not, so I didn't really do anything. I invited her to my house. We sat and we talked, and then she wanted to sit on my bum with me lying flat on my face. I was vulnerable at the time. I was the lollipop kid, so I let her. But it didn't do anything. It didn't make me feel like I needed to do anything. I didn't chase her. It was just a moment in time. Because when I stepped out of my community and I went to Chesterfield, Derbyshire, I had a lot of girlfriends, but not girlfriends, just girls as friends, like talk to them. And I knew there was a lot of girls who fancied me, and they told me, they'd literally tell me to my face, but I couldn't get with them. Couldn't get with them at all. So I carried that back to Birmingham, but I didn't understand the urban mind. I didn't understand the brown mind of most of my people here in the foyer at the time when I met people. And then I went to Matthew Bolton, and I met yourself and Matthew Bolton. Can't remember if it was Matthew Bolton, but then I went to numerous colleges, and I met numerous people, but it was learning for me because I didn't know how different I was at the time. Overall, I just took the time to accept that some of the relationship problems that we were having wasn't to be a problem in a relationship, and it shouldn't be classed as a problem in a relationship. But if we can learn how to multitask and find a way out from the problems before it happens, like having a case conference, for you, for me, that's coming together every month, at the end of the month, or every weekend, to revive the relationship and to assess where we can improve as people. That's one thing that I realized when I was in a 6-year relationship, and I was using my experiences, but not intentionally. I just didn't know. But I was building my girlfriend at that time for a job and to get her own car, and she got those things. I didn't take 100% authority to be responsible for that, because I know she had other people around her at the time. But I used to introduce things to her because she was from a Christian family, and it was quite difficult for me at the time to go against that. But I wouldn't have gone against that. Why would I? Why would I go against somebody else's Christianity, which is still in my community, but with a light-skinned girl? I had to respect her mother's wishes, because her mum was as dark as me, but I respected the fact that she was Christian, and that was her choice. But I just thought that I can make her better. I met a lot of girls who've done a lot of things to me and brought out so many horrible characters and crazy characters, and being jealous over other guys, to jail myself to the actual occasion of wanting to be angered at it, that it just threw me away, and it almost alienated me from myself. I ended up in rehab with some of the things that I endured from all the relationships, and I just about saved myself. If it wasn't for Selena coming in to see me, and Marsha and her sister Charlene at the time, who I was going out with Charlene's sister, Marsha Fioletto, at the time. And I did see, I was with my ex, well, the expectation of reviving myself from all the memories at that time when I was almost lost. But you have to let go of a lot of things, because when you have a relationship with someone and you just think about all the good things that they did in that relationship, you want to chase the old things. You want the old things back, like we've heard in music. I had to let go of everything, absolutely every practice, just to make myself not the leader, but the guy who I wanted to hold myself responsible to. I held on to responsibility instead. And even though I had my losses and things were taken away from me, without any say. I just held on to being a responsible individual. That if one day I was to receive anything considered to be special enough, then I'd be the guy who needed to allow himself at that time to be able to share something special with the persons or the personalities who needed it at the time. So it's fair to say that I handed myself self-respect to see, just to see if I could handle being alone, away from people who I'd grown to care for and who I expected to care for me. But even though I received little love, the other side of the care came from myself. So I grew myself like that. And I'd only hope that people and individuals in my community today can grow themselves also in the same way. And then we'll definitely grow as a good nation of people, and we'll have one, two, many of individuals who could stand in a way. I mean, this is standing just to say how I felt from way back in the day of a time when I wasn't taught how to talk to the people who had moved on with their lives and their practices. But it's taken me this long just to feel that there was worth in Birmingham. There still is worth in Birmingham. I still got love for people, even though I don't see them, even though they don't call me or respond to me. I can only assume that it's rude at the time, but I'm just used to letting things go. If something don't work for me, I let it go. If something works for me, I keep hold of it. What works for me? I work for me. So I kept hold of me. So I'm letting you know. And you'll probably let somebody else know. Together, we'll let the people who need to know what we came to know through one spiritual acknowledgement of knowing something. That there doesn't need to be war. If there's just one house, and that person who owns that house, we all play a part in that role. And who we assign to be the leader of that house? Well, it's your choice, isn't it? Because I've made up my mind. I'm happy where I'm at right now. And what could complete me right now? Well, I want to get married in the future, in the near future, with the Godspeed of future. I want to be happy, have a family house, and be a public speaker, public figure to inspire all kinds of people. Discrimination shouldn't be practiced by the people who it's practiced on. We're all supposed to be individuals to advocate better. The change comes from people, not from anyone else claiming to be us. Why would I allow that?